Hello everyone, myself Adwaid Krishna. I'm a student of Lovely Professional University, currently pursuing BTech CSE, AI and Data Engineering. Today, we'll dive into the world of data structures and algorithms in Python by viewing a real-life implementation of queue in an app called Rapido. Rapido is actually a bike taxi service hailing from India, which was founded in 2015 and which is quite prominent all over the country. So, first of all, we'll be looking into the pseudocode, that is the base outline or the blueprint of our actual code, which we'll see later on in the video. So, first of all, we'll create a class called writeQueue, which will initialize queue as an empty list. Then we are going to create our first method, which is init. And actually, methods are the functions that we are going to define in our actual code. So the method init, what it actually does is that it sets the queue as an empty list. Our next method is empty. What it actually does is that it checks whether the queue is empty or not. If the queue is empty, it returns true, and if it is not, then it will return false. Our next method is enqueue. So what actually the method enqueue does is that it is used to input values into the queue. And in the case of Rapido, what it does is that like whenever a customer requests for a ride, it is put into the queue. So the ride stays at the top of the queue. Here, the values that are being stored is like the name of the customer, the source destination, that is the destination from where the ride is being requested, and finally the final destination to where the ride has been requested. So after enqueue is enqueue function is run, we'll print a message that is new ride requested. After the enqueue method is the dequeue. uh, like what dequeue does is that it just like enqueue is used to input the values into the queue, the dequeue method is used to take the values out of the queue. So what actually queue is? Queue is actually a type of data structure which is known as first in, first out. That is, in queue data structure, the values that are being added to it will remain at the top, and when we are removing anything from the queue, the top value gets out. So it is like first in and first out. It's like when we are standing in a queue, the person in the front is the one who is going to get out of it first. So that is how a queue works. So in DQ method, we are going to pop the top request out of it. So it's actually processing the ride request, which is in case of Rapido. So before actually using DQ, like when the DQ method is initialized, first what we'll check is whether the queue is empty or not. We'll only proceed if the queue is not empty. Also, after removing the topmost element, we'll print a message that is processing write requests for. Okay, also, in case the stack is empty, that is maybe if no request of a ride has arrived in the app, then we will print that the queue is empty. The next method that we are going to initialize is peak. So what peak method actually does is that if we when like we are requesting for a ride, we need to check like when we are accepting a ride on the part of Rapido, we need to check which request has come in which hour. So the peak method is used to view the latest or the topmost request in the queue. So in case of a queue structure, what peak method is used is to view the topmost data, that is the first data in that queue. And that is done actually without deleting the top element. So we are not pushing it out of the queue. We're just viewing which is the data that is at the top of the queue. When we are using peak and if the queue is empty, we'll print that the queue. is empty. The next method that we are going to initialize is display. So this method is actually used to view all the data that is there in the queue. So in case of Rapido, this method is used to see all the ride requests that are in queue that is waiting to be approved. As with the method display. The next method is that is count method, or the count method, which is actually used to find the number of queues that is available right now in the queue. That is the number of requests that is pending in the queue. Then we are going to initialize the main function. That is actually the main part of the code. We are going to show here the menu that is going to be shown to the user, which allows the user to choose what action they are going to perform. First of all, we'll create an instance of queue as so while true, we'll display the menu options, which are first option will be to enqueue enqueue the write request. That is actually a menu option which will allow the user to request for a ride. It will actually give the user the option to type in their name, their source destination, and the final destination. Uh, in the second option, what actually is being done is that the request that is there in the queue will get processed. So when the user is choosing the second option, the request that is pending in the queue will get processed. The display queue option is used to display all the contents of the queue. Uh, or we'll just use peak option first. So peak option shows the topmost topmost data in the queue. We peak at next right request. Okay, then we'll display the queue. The fifth option will be to check the number of queues. And finally, we'll give you the option to exit from the program. So after this, what we'll do is that we'll get the user's feedback, like what the user wishes to do, whether he wishes to enqueue a write request into the queue or dequeue, that is to take process the topmost request from the queue, or just view what the next queue is, or display the entire queue, or check at its size, or just exit from the program. That's up to the user, and depending on what the user chooses, we'll see what next will be done. So, if the user is going to choose option one, that is, if choice one, we'll first of all prompt the user to give their name, source, destination, and their final destination. And then we'll call queue dot enqueue with the provided details. If the choice is two, then we'll call queue dot dequeue to process process the next write request. Choice is three. We'll call queue dot peak to view the if the user's choice is four, we'll call queue dot display to View all the write requests. Finally, the choice is 5. That is, we'll call q dot size or q dot count to view the number of requests. Choice is 6. What actually does is that we'll exit from the program. So first of all, we'll print the word exiting, and later on we just break out of the loop. So the program stops there. And but if in the case the user is pressing any of the other choices from 1 to 5, the program will run again. So it is actually a loop. So even if a user chooses the choice 1, the program doesn't stop there. It continues, and the user can choose any other option that he wishes to. But in case of the sixth option, that is exit, the program will close itself. But if a user chooses any other option apart from all of this, then it is actually considered as invalid because those options are not available here. So what we'll do is that we'll just print invalid choice there. So that is all about the pseudocode. Now we'll look into the actual code. So for writing a Python code, we'll be using Visual Studio. So let's begin with it. First of all, we'll write the class just like we did in the pseudocode. First, we'll initialize the class as write queue. In the pseudocode, the function which we call first was init, and we'll be calling it to self. So get def init self dot items. We are right. Yeah. We assign self dot items to an empty queue. So that was what we said we'll do in the pseudocode. The next method in the pseudocode was to create a function called isEmpty. So first we'll create it isEmpty, and this function is actually used to check whether the queue is empty or not. Well, isEmpty self. So what actually happens here is that, as you can see, we are just returning the length of the we are just checking what the length of the self dot items queue is, and if it is equal to 0, then it will be returned as true, and if it is not equal to 0, then it will be returned as false. So what it actually means is that if it is not equal to zero, then there are write requests pending in the queue. Next function is dequeue. Okay. Now, as per the pseudocode, we are going to check whether the queue is empty or not. So what we'll use is if not self dot is empty. That is, we are checking whether the queue is empty or not. So if it's not empty, then we'll proceed with the rest. So what actually is happening over here is that we are actually popping the data that is at the top or the request which is at the top of the queue out of it, and it will just be removed from the queue. And that request or the data at the top is being processed. So the queue will go on getting emptier as the more requests are being processed. Next one was The next one is display, which is used to display all the contents of the queue, not self dot is. First of all, print a heading, write quest in queue for IDX. So what actually is happening here is that we are just first of all checking whether the queue is empty. If it is not empty, then we are printing all the values that is there in the queue in the order. Like first of all, we'll show the customer and the name of the customer. Then from source that is the beginning of the write, and then we'll show to that is the final destination. In that way, we'll show the entire content of the queue uh, will be displayed. Okay, if it is not empty, we'll again print. Now the next one is def dot count self. So in here also we are going to return the size of the queue. That is how many data is present in the queue. So if no data is present, it will return as zero, and in any other case, it will return the number of values that is present in it. So we'll return the length of the that is length of the queue. So that is all about the functions. Now we'll go into the main function, that is this function will contain the data that is being showed to the user. That is the menu options. Like we saw in the pseudocode, The main part contains the menu, which will be displayed to the user, and the user will be given a choice to choose which option he wishes to perform. So first of all, we'll initialize an instance of queue as right queue. Yeah. While row will print right request queue management. Then we'll print the first one, which is to add new write request. Second option will be to process next write request. The third option is see next write request, that is to P. The fourth is to see all the write requests, that is to display. The fifth option, which is to check the queue size. And the last option is to exit from the program. So now we have displayed all the menu options that will be available to the user. Next thing is to accept a response from the user, that is which choice that they want to use. So choice. Now if choice equal to 1, will prompt the user to enter the name. So we just assign name the uh, we assigned a name the value of a value inputted by the customer, that is the customer name, not by the customer but the value inputted, that is the customer name. Then for source, we will enter the starting point, and then for the destination, the final destination will be entered. I will call the function, that is queue.enqueue new request. Then we'll also print a message, that is new ride request added. Okay, if the choice is two, then we'll just call the function q.dequeue. If choice is three, then we'll call q.peak. If choice is four, then we'll call q.display. Choice equal to five. That is, the fifth option is used to check the size. So first of all, we'll just print a message, that is size of the queue. So queue size into queue dot, sorry. Yes. First of all, we made a mistake over here, because instead of if every single time, we will just use if, elif, and else. So it should be elif everywhere. And after the fifth one, it will be the last one, which is again elif choice is equal to 6, and we'll just print exiting to show that the customer is being exited from the program, and we'll just break the loop. Also, uh, if the customer has typed any option, if the customer did not type any of the option, I mean not the customer, if the user did not type any of the options that is available in the menu, then it is an invalid input. So if any of the options other than 1 to 6 is pressed, then we'll just print invalid input. It's invalid choice. Finally, okay, name equal to main. So that is all about our code. So this is the entire code which we use to for which we use for the app of Rapido. So what it actually does is that it has six options. That is to add a ride request. That is when a customer is requesting for a ride, it will go into their database and it will stay at the top of a queue. So whenever a request is accepted, then the request which was at the top will be processed. That is being done in the second option, that is dequeue. And whenever if someone wants to view what which request is at the top of the queue, the third option is used, which is used to peek. And if someone wishes to see all the requests that is there in the queue, then they will use the fourth option, which is used to display the entire content. Then the fifth option, which is used to view the number of requests that is pending in their queue. And the final option, sixth option, is used to exit from the program. So this is their entire code. And before proceeding further, before running the program, we need to make sure our code is correct, or we need to check the entire code. So first of all, we have assigned a class. We have defined in it, which is we have created a empty queue. We have you define the function is empty to check whether the queue is empty or not. And queue is used to append the items into the queue. Then there is dequeue, which is used to pop items out of it. And yeah, we'll first of all check whether it is empty. If it is not, then we'll print queue is empty. Here we'll also have to return none. Here also return none. And in case of count self, okay, here it should be over here. Put under your choice. Yeah, here it's mentioned size, so it should be count. Also, in case of peak, the code should be like next. This is how the code for peak should be. Now we'll finally run the code. So first of all, we'll add a new write request. So we're just going to name it around starting point as Delhi, and the final destination is Agra. So this value is inputted into it. Next, we'll process the request. That is, we are going to pop it out of the queue. So it's done. So we can see here that a message is displayed processing the right request for Arun. Now we'll see the peak option, the third one. It's mentioning queue is empty because in the second of a process, we just process the right request. So now the queue is empty. So we'll once again add a value to make sure our code is correct. Delhi, Agra. So now we are going to peek directly and see next ride request to process Road, source Delhi, destination Agra. If we use the fourth option, that is to display, it will be showed like here, customer route from Delhi to Agra. And when if you want to check the size of the queue, we'll use the fifth option. So here we can see queue size is 1. And finally, when we want to exit, we can just press 6 and it will show exiting. So that's all about the code. I hope you guys understood something about the data structures and algorithms in Python with this implementation of queue in Rapido. Thank you.